Meeting to order at
6
o'clock. What we need is an approval of the agenda,
Roll call.
please. Roll call, I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Gotsky.
Here.
Reamer.
Here,
Kasserbuski.
Yep.
Denkert.
Here.
We have a quorum.
all right, approval of the agenda, please.
I approve.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Oh, okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Public communication comment, we don't have anybody here, I don't think, so we'll eliminate that. Approval of meeting minutes from July 28th, 2025.
I approve those.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Discussion items. A, capital improvement planning. It has vehicle registration fee, CIP, and project guidance. You want to talk about that first?
Yep, so what we're gonna do is gonna start kinda high level and then work our way down through some of the materials that we have in your packet. So, the first thing, and what I have up here on the screen is what was the city's capital improvement plan moving into the financial management plan. So that we did a financial management plan about 1.5 years ago-ish, and within that plan we put in projects and priorities for funding. So we've broken it down here into facilities, equipment, parks and grounds, road reconstruction, bridges and storm sewer utility improvements, public safety, and development investment. Ultimately, the focus of this tonight is more in the public works realm and within, you know, the idea of equipment, road reconstruction, utilities. So not necessarily talking much about some of that extra stuff, but generally keeping it to the idea of public works and that scope. When we look at this, we have 2025, and the city had a significant year of investment between the DPW building being constructed. We did some plow truck, or brush chipper, some other equipment. We had Selfridge Park, and then our big project for the year was about $2 million in Hamburg and Henny Street. So overall, we had a pretty big year when it came to investment in public works and infrastructure. So moving forward, really, you start looking at 26, and there are things that we've placed in the 2026 budget. So things that are already priorities have been placed in the budget. So just certain, like City Hall flooring, things like that. When we get down into road reconstruction, the plan is to leverage a grant we received to do Houston Street and a portion of East Seward Street. That's a full reconstruct. We then have in here $150,000 approximately due for a vehicle registration fee, so that we'll talk about in a minute. We move then into SCADA system upgrades and some other, the new municipal well, doing a pilot well, and kind of working our way down toward SCADA system upgrades, which are about $1 million. So a lot of these projects, if you've been paying attention around the council, we've approved moving forward with the projects, and we're scoping them out or engineering them, and we will be bidding them out, or we're already undertaking them, and they will be done in 2026. Where we start to get into more conversation is 27, 28, 29, and 30. As we work our way through this, we've changed some things here and there based on just the capacity of the city financially, the capacity of certain funds, the timeline of grants and other cycles that we work through. So this is not meant to be it's meant to be a guide, but it can be changed year after year. So things get moved around. But the big things we have to recognize is that as we just completed a large DPW facility, the cost of that now moving into, in the next couple of years, doing a pilot well, and then right here, a new municipal well. That is a significant investment for the community, and one that we are under mandates and guidance from the DNR to accomplish. So we have projects in here to do Liberty Street in 27, 28, East Sullivan, 29 is then Pacific Street, and then we kind of cap this out at the very end with the big one, the State Highway in 2030. So we're sort of trying to layer responsible projects or manageable projects within these two bigger projects that have significant financial impacts on just in times of scope, and they're once in a 50-year type projects, right? So we're putting these in, and they're flexible. So this is kind of meant to be the guide. We have other utility improvements, some minor, some are pretty regular in terms of cellular meters, things like that. But ultimately, you can kind of see where the priorities are, and it's meant to be flexible, right? That's really the goal in this, but it provides a guide. We've had to bump projects off. We have also applied for a lot of funding recently, and if there is funding that comes into play, a project may be moved up based on the fact that the state has a grant, or we receive a grant, or there's a timeline associated with that. There's also projects that moved off from the original list because when we looked at doing the grant and we had estimates out, they became significantly higher in cost to do the project for full reconstruct. So with those two bigger projects that are pending in the well and the state highway, the two we don't have much choice in, right? We've tried to sort of layer in other projects. So that's big picture stuff, right? And we are, frankly, for the next year set, next 2 years, pretty set with some flexibility. But by 27, 28, we anticipate the well being the main project, and then fitting in others. When it comes to kind of the unknown, or what we are have kind of committed ourselves to, you have here about $150,000 that is placed in road repavement projects. So this is cash coming in from the vehicle registration fee. So you're all aware the Common Council approved a wheel tax. We began collecting in April of this year, and part of that was we were to provide guidance and present projects. And the intention of the wheel tax was to have projects that weren't on a capital improvement plan. So not any of these, right? Ones that are not necessarily full reconstructs. All of these on this bigger list are full reconstructs, meaning water, sewer, everything. And so our staff began looking at what criteria based on just everything we're putting into the equation, what criteria should we be looking at to identify the best projects so we can maximize the investment and tackle our infrastructure needs wisely, right? So we put this together. You can see on here street classification. So the idea of doing local roads versus larger roads. Phaser ratings. For those that aren't aware, every 2 years Alan has to basically go around and grade pavement roads, right? So we do that, and they are rated from 1 to 10, a new road being 10 and a gravel road basically being 1. And then lead service lines. So what we had done is we worked with our GIS system, MSA or consultant, to put together a map that could help identify what projects we could do, right? What makes most sense, because the lead service line aspect of this is a pretty important consideration to make, as we are on about a 10-12 year timeline here, and Katie can speak to the amount of work that has been going on behind the scenes to identify lead service lines, create inventories, publicize inventories, educate the public on lead service lines, right? We have now a list, and we have to attack lead service lines. So the idea of using a portion or a part of the wheel tax fund to identify projects to do to further enhance our lead service line replacements is a very important goal, because our current lead service line ordinance states that it's mandatory replacement when a project occurs, okay? So if we have areas that aren't better candidates for full reconstructs that have potential lead service lines on the public or private side, we should be looking at those in the coming years as priority streets to do, right? While our inventory is a start, it is not complete. We are still working through public education and outreach to ensure that we know where every lead service line is. When we look at this map, this uses the data, and through, what our roads are rated, right? You can begin turning off or turning on, the bad streets, and then you can know unknown or ones that are confirmed lead. And you begin seeing the areas, sorry it's a little small, but you can begin seeing areas in which we have identified lead service lines with then roads that are in poor condition, as well as public side. When we talk about goosenecks or the city's responsibility, you have a series of areas where there are pockets of gooseneck or lead service lines on the city then. So this map essentially helps, distill the information or narrow our search, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't always work out, right? There might be a better road or not as bad of a road, or there may be one or two. So we've tried to kind of use this as a guide. The other side is there are projects in here that we have to begin, like State Street. Yes, we were originally considering State Street. Is that State? No, Scott Street. Sorry, Scott Street. We were originally considering Scott Street, but there are a heavy number of lead service lines. When it comes to then looking at other opportunities for funding like CDBG or a full reconstruct, that's a $2 million plus project to get that done correctly and to replace the lines. So that will appear on a longer range capital improvement plan, and the wheel tax fund won't have enough money to complete the full thing. So we've used this as well to do more long range planning and leverage the dollars to say what makes sense. Beyond that, right? Underground utilities. What condition are the utilities that they don't need replacement? So we've worked as a staff to say, okay, we haven't had a lot of known water main breaks, or we've had televising and there's not problems here. We can put a surface on and not replace for another 20 years or whatever, right? Road characteristics, average daily traffic, right? Outside of existing plans, safety concerns, cost effectiveness, are there other dollars available to leverage into this? So, for example, if there's a TIF district in the area and we can take some of the excess increment to put toward it, these are all things here, right? And the idea with the policy is to identify projects and kind of get a geographical distribution, so we're not just focused on one part of town, maybe going north, south, or on some sort of cycle, so it's getting distributed. So we've thought about that. Obviously with lead service lines, the north and south parts of town that are sprawl out are not going to have the same problems as the inner part of town with older homes, because the materials used to construct were different and they don't have the lead, right? Overall, guidance would prepare an annual wheel tax CIP. It would be reviewed by a Public Works Committee, taken to the Common Council, and then the goal would be as part of, say, like this next year, Hamburg, the Houston Street reconstruction, we would do a bid alternate with 1-2 projects, bid in it, and see which one is most advantageous to do and apply the funds to. So overall, we're trying to kind of identify the projects, narrow the scope, get some projects that, you know, we've identified, which we have a list here. But if there's any questions or comments about kind of the guidance document or any suggestions for edits or anything you want to discuss, we're here to do that first.
I got a question. We have two streets in the end of Jackson Street that goes to Douglas Street. And I don't know if we can repave those for a while, because I know they're not hot on the list, but I wouldn't want to be a plow driver going down that road, because you just drive down it normally and it's really beat up. And I'm talking about from Stanton Street to Douglas Street in that area down here. And that gets a lot of traffic also from the Alliance cars and stuff at 3 o'clock and in the morning. And I don't know how far down the list that is. Also, the street that's right next to it.
Yeah, so Hall and Jackson are both on the list.
They're all both on the
Hall,
chart.
that's the one.
Hall, both of them are on the list.
Okay, and like I say, I know that's gonna be a major reconstruction because there's no curb and gutter on those streets.
So Hall and Jackson are on this list for, so we took, there are a few streets here with low rankings, some potential lead service lines, but not likely a ton, right? There could be some. There are other water infrastructure needs on a lot of these stretches, like adding hydrants or adding valves and whatnot. So generally, where we have gotten complaints over the past few years, where there's a relative like affordability in the budget to do a project, because these are just guesstimates, right? Tabbert, Lincoln, Wawa, Hall, East Jackson, and Carroll are the roads right off the bat that have some ability to I think reasonably get done based on the criteria. It does probably lean less on lead service line and more on condition and other factors like traffic or impact in the community. Overall, you know, we talked as a staff, sat down and said which areas, because in the past, Hall and Jackson were both looked at to say, let's urbanize them, put curb and gutter in, let's put sidewalks in, and ultimately that was, by doing this, we would say, no, we will just maintain them and do a mill and overlay just as they are, right? Which we could do. And they are impactful streets, those two in particular, off of state highways, proximity to Alliance. I don't think you can go wrong with those. Hall is considered like a collector, not a local road, but certainly neither of those are on the next 5-year list. And from a technical perspective, are pretty easy because you're just doing a mill and overlay. So our general recommendation in the first year was to, you know, design and bid out 2 projects to see what would be more advantageous, and Hall and Tabbert were the 2 we, as staff, just said, you know, these make some sense. You know, any of these can, right? I mean, but we have to kind of, we have to pick and choose, right? And so, what's the best one? That's why we're bringing it here, to say, if there's other suggestions, we can. Certainly, we can go back to this area here, and you can look at the areas. All of these roads are in the 4 to 2 range of condition.
Well, can you put up Washington from whatever 23 to Oshkosh? I just want to see, because I just drove on that.
Yep, right here.
So what does that rank at?
4.
4.
So
Must be higher up above.
So yeah, it's probably a 5. So it moves to a 5. And the challenge with like a Washington, right? And this gets into the next thing about bridges. right? And like Pacific as well, and eligibility for CDBG. You're getting into full reconstruct world, and you know those are maybe more targeted projects for reconstruct, and less, you know, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do there with the amount of wheel tax dollars that are available. But yes, that is a section that is obviously needs to be done. We took care of Hamburg. So
Yeah, I think my point of view on it is kind of the wheel tax dollars, the registration dollars are really impactful for those areas that would otherwise not get done, or where we can use it to stabilize the road so that we can get to it in the full capital improvement plan, versus, you know, if we have to do something with a bridge or an overpass, or we have to do full curb remakes, you know, well, it's great, it's awesome that we could take, you know, what our registration money would be to help fund those projects, but also we can plan those and we can get those projects funded, you know, like Adam said, through other grants and other funding mechanisms. The registration money seems like it's kind of a win if we can take it and get you know, a daily improvement, something done in a couple months, get the road kind of fixed up to get the Pacer score up reasonable, and then let that sit and let it be done for the next, you know, 10 to 15 years, and then start to reevaluate any of those, you know, service lines and utilities and all of that stuff, which seems kind of counterintuitive. You'd think you'd want to use the money to leverage into larger projects to do more with every dollar, but also that just means all these side local streets get set aside for another 35 years. You know, it's kind of a catch 22 in a way.
But you won't get very much done with $150,000.
No,
I mean, you
Well,
might get the engineering done, but that's
the
about it.
I can tell you, knowing people that live on Tabard and Wawa, don't recall, I don't think I know anyone that lives on Lincoln, people that live on Hall Street, that even with just milling the top 2 inches and repaving, as you know, 1,000 some feet for the budget that we have, that's gonna make a huge difference. Every morning they get up and drive to work on that street. And those are all residential local roads that I hear from people going up to the school, and I hear from bus drivers, and it's, you know, those are the things that people talk about.
Is there a possibility, this is kind of off the cuff, but is there a possibility, since Alliance has so many people using that road, that they could kick in some money for?
So, but to the point in the guidance, right, the idea of leveraging other dollars.
Yes.
There's a TIF district right there that Alliance Laundry pays 100% of the TIF
Oh,
dollar
well,
tax,
then
right?
okay.
So that's the whole concept, right? We don't know what it's gonna cost until we bid it out. And we're gonna bid it out as part of the larger project to try to get some economy of scale in it, right? So if we're doing Houston and East Seward, this is a bid alt to say, okay, in addition, we wanna just do a quick mill and overlay of this amount, right? We want to have some spec to it, so we're not laying down inappropriate type of pavement, but get it hammered out, and then when it comes in, if there's the ability to do one project, great. If there's the ability to work within the budget to do 2, even better, right? We just leveraged the wheel tax into doing 2 projects that wouldn't have seen the light of day for 10 years, right, or more. And you know, that's the goal of the guidance, and getting a couple projects put in the scope that, you know, fit some of that guidance. You know, certainly there are more roads than this, right? But we have to start somewhere, and I think we've worked to create this guidance to really narrow it to at least not just be throwing a dart at the map, right?
Help narrow the scope, give us some, 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 guidance, so to speak, as to why did you choose this road versus,
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can't just throw a dart out there and hope it's the right one.
Well, we could.
we could, and we wouldn't be wrong,
Yeah,
but we would be
Right, but-
wrong to a lot of people in the community.
Right.
This provides justification, it gives us a guiding tool for selecting these roads for this money.
And Alan would know, just through the employees, what roads really need something, I would think. And throwing it on your back. But no,
Yeah,
I mean, he's getting most of the complaints, and,
Right,
and
right.
when he gets a complaint, like, he'll file it with me, and it'll be like, yep, we get a lot of complaints about
yeah.
a lot of these roads on the list, and,
I think there's also something to be said about all of these proposals here in front of us are small enough to get done in a year, basically, right? Or quickly within one season. And to me, as part of the community, saying, hey, what is our registration tax doing? It's really nice to be able to say, hey, this is a project that was planned, bid, done, and over with quickly, easily, minimal impact. We don't have to do a bunch of detouring. We don't have to do a bunch of work with police for traffic and all that and engineering. We can just say, these roads need work. Let's do the work. We've got this, registration money coming in, and let's get it done. So, yeah, I'd be fully supportive of any of these roads proposed. But yeah, having the two bid out and trying to see which ones fit makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I guess I have two questions, more tangential. So if it's not in the scope of this discussion, you can just move on. But the first, I think it's maybe the easier one. So 2035, 2037, lead service line, you said? 10
yeah,
years, 12 years?
there's still some up in the air, right? Like, but we're gonna be put on about a 10-year,
So my
yep.
I guess my question in that is, you have 51 known lead service lines. Say we fix all 51 of those, and 2035 rolls around. What's the check at like the actual EPA level or whatever? That's like, actually you guys missed 7. Like, how is that checked? Like, if we don't
it's
know,
a constant inventory.
but how do you find it? Like, if we don't know it.
Oh, it could get really gnarly in terms of like us having to pass an ordinance that says the moment you find a lead service line or we find a lead service line, it's mandatory replacement within X amount of days,
Okay.
or we come in and we replace it. It could get to that point, right? Right now we're project based, and we're, like Houston Street and Hamburg Henny, we're getting out, I believe, 12 or so, roughly 12 through those projects. So if we continue doing those reconstructs over the next 10 years, I think we'll get the majority of them.
Okay, so that was gonna be
Yeah.
my next question in that was you're spending, in large road repairs, I don't know, 1 to 2 million a year,
Yes.
right? And if we keep that cadence in 10 years, fairly comfortable, we hit that mark?
Yeah,
there we go.
I think there's always gonna be that like
Outlier.
house in the middle of nowhere that we
There's
find, but
gonna be somewhere you're gonna have to dig up in a road.
Sure,
And
but in
just-
general.
in general,
Yeah.
in general, like Scott Street, Houston Street, those ones that we've identified through this tool, which this is only a few, we've only had this for a couple months, you can see kind of the areas, and we're already kind of working in these areas. So, but we also are aware that you start just doing roads in this part of town, so you got to kind of cycle it around. But overall, I think we have the tools, and we we can leverage this and our other capital plan to attack this more aggressively. But at the end of the day, if it comes down to like, yeah, the EPA is like, it's going to be mandatory replacement regardless of if we have funding to do it or not, and it's going to be rolled to the tax roll for the property owner, because that's where they're going with this. So we have also approved or applied for lead service line replacement programs, so we're going to be rolling those things out so in the next year or two. So the goal then is to have that done so we can get some of those one-offs where we just say, hey, we have the program, fix it now, folks, right? We're not gonna do a project there necessarily, but the sooner you work with us to get it out, the better for everybody, so.
I don't know if this is on the camera tonight or not.
I think that one is.
Okay, anyway, for the general public, if you have a steel line that's coming in your building, the best way to do it is to grab a magnet, and if it sticks to the line, you got a galvanized steel line. If it doesn't stick, you have a lead line. So that's something that they can do on their own to figure out whether they have it or not. And it's a simple test. So that's something that I learned a long time ago.
We just Katie and Dave did a whole PR, social media post.
Okay.
They did a video showing what is what, how to tell, so that's all out there.
Okay.
And we just were awarded $21,000 for a lead service line outreach grant to the DNR to continue outreach and education for lead service lines. So we'll be going around to people's homes. We'll be putting out more information and trying to
I was
get
trying to figure out how you guys
do
do this,
inspections.
but okay, now it's making sense.
Yeah.
And we do have about 1,300 unknowns that could be lead.
Yeah,
So we have to find those out too. So, I mean.
So what do you just go to these houses and?
Yeah, we have to go to the houses.
Knock on
We
the door
can
and say,
have
"Hey."
homeowners verify.
And then
Them
there's a
too?
letter that you can, in the form, right?
What's that?
The letter in a form.
Yep.
The-
Online, there's a
And
form.
most-
Online, there's a form.
Unfortunately, not everybody, the rate of return with letters is very minimal.
yeah.
But
But they all have.
Well, I was trying to figure out how you guys, how in the heck could you make this map, but
Mhm.
it's making sense, you.
Yeah, we have a spreadsheet that has all, the
Data.
whole list. Believe me, it takes up a good share of my day.
Well, right, I figured that's how you find
The
out,
mains break
unfortunately.
and you have to go and turn off water.
But a lot of
and-
the unknowns, you can reason, Alan and I talked about this too, it's like, if there was a section of town built in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, there's a good chance it's not lead, right? You know, but,
So we were talking like Tavern Wawa, there's a lot of unknowns there, but that subdivision was created back in the 60s and 70s. There's no lead there.
Yeah,
We
That would
still
make
need to
perfect sense.
verify it,
Right.
but there's,
Very
Yeah.
unlikely.
yeah.
like I said, anytime well, not that they do it so often, but anytime they replace a water meter that's inside the house,
Yeah.
those,
somebody
that's,
can check it out.
And they are. They
We have self-
document it every single time.
we have self-reporting tools, we have scheduling tools where somebody can go online and schedule one of our staff to come out to their house and do an inspection. We're gonna start doing with the outreach grant, we're gonna start doing weekend hours and inspection times and door to door. So, we're just working through all that in '26, so.
Can I just ask a dumb
Yeah.
question? I'm looking under your funding,
Mhm.
and I see cash.
Mhm.
How does,
Cash means either built within a budget or from like outside, like a not general fund debt or revenue from a water or sewer. So like flooring, for example, we budget for, or a truck, we may put in the budget for cash. So we put it in the general fund and pull it from cash with, so.
all right, thanks, Ed.
I guess we'll move on because we're kind of.
Yeah, so if there's a recommendation to accept the guidance, I would like to receive that and then move it forward to the common council for January, just to have them review it as well and
All right.
create the guidance as official.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation and send to the city council.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so that'll be done. II is, it's II.
Bridge
Bridge projects, that's, well, can they call it a bridge project? I thought that the DNR wanted it to be called an overpass,
So,
because otherwise it's more expensive. No, there's a reason.
So just to give everybody kind of there are an alarming number of crossings or bridges or structures, we'll just call them structures, right?
Okay,
Creek structures in the city. And you can see here that only a couple of them are considered DOT, so they are on a regular inspection schedule. The state has created a local bridge, so the ones that aren't over 20 is it
It's
20-foot span?
20
Yeah,
foot.
20 feet and under is the small structure program.
So they have requested inventory, so when we started to get that, Alan had MSA about 6 months ago go around and do an inspection. That is in your report. Ayers also did a follow-up inspection, and the state is working toward a local bridge program where they can provide funding, because while there are like 1,000 bridges in the state and municipalities, there are like 4,000 local bridges. We have quite a few, so Alan.
So we have, in our community, we have 15 structures. 5 of those are classified as greater than 20 feet. So 10 of those are the small structures that were not being routinely inspected. Of those, there's, I believe, 5 of those. I was looking at them. We have 6 of them that need some form of structural work. All of them need some type of maintenance, but MSA went through and categorized the maintenance activities, and there's a fair amount of, I'll call it like brush maintenance or crack filling for roads, things like that, that our staff should be able to do given time. The structural type stuff are the types of repairs that I'll end up having to work with MSA or another consulting engineer to figure out a program in which we start checking the boxes to get those taken care of also. In addition to that, we also have retaining walls in 4 locations. We've got along Hamburg, Eureka Street, Jackson Street, and also Scott Street. I forgot about that. In various states of disrepair, especially the one on Hamburg. We purposely stopped the road project on Hamburg short of or just as we hit the retaining wall to reduce stress on it for fear that it would collapse it into the stream. So ultimately, I think where we're going with this is we've got to start getting creative with how we're going to start funding these repairs and also replacements if there aren't grant dollars available. So as I talked to Adam, I don't know what other communities have, but it just seems, from a per capita basis standpoint, Ripon has a higher bridge to per capita than many other communities. So gets down to we may have some decisions to make about which bridges we're going to keep versus which ones we may decide that, will we have to start reducing the number of bridges in this community.
It's gonna be a tough one because
It
most of
is.
those bridges are
Yeah,
pretty mean thoroughfares for people,
yeah.
so.
So there's a couple things. Within the capital improvement plan, we did sort of tie in Pacific Street and East Jackson Street Bridge and Pacific Street Bridge, both are recommended for complete reconstruction. When Ayers came through, here's just some pictures of, some of the condition of the East Jackson Street Bridge, and it's an old
bridge.
It's an old bridge, right? And there's a TIF district in the area, and they have amended the project plan to try to allow for it to be funded by that. And then, and then you have Pacific Street Bridge, which was worked on in the 90s, was not reconstructed, and it is one of the ones that we've done more recently and is failing. So there was another barricade put on it because the steel girders are rotting through, correct?
Right, the ones on the east side of the bridge, the upstream side, the recent inspection by Ayers and Associates. Ayers came through and evaluated or re-inspected a number of these in a state program. Because the state, that's the second phase of the state's small structure program. This is underneath the sidewalk.
So
That's why the barricades were put up, is to make sure that a wayward car doesn't make its way up onto that sidewalk.
So, this is the first time a lot of these bridges have been inspected or a full report. We wanted to kind of bring it forward. We have built into the capital improvement plan, working towards some of these in coordination with other projects. We will look for funding, but it's something that wasn't necessarily looked at as intentionally up until recently, right? Now, the other side of this is, do you want to explore longer range planning with bridges? Well, you had mentioned that, yes, there are a lot of main thoroughfares. There are 3 bridges right behind City Hall, all that are in need of replacement, right? There are bridges that literally serve one property, right?
And that one's in good shape.
You know?
Well, that's good.
But
But in the
But I
end,
see what you're saying.
but
Where
at
do
some
you-
point in time, that bridge will need major work or replacement. And so, at some point in time, we need to start looking at our inventory and looking at how this, what are the options available to this community as far as reducing, either maintaining those bridges or reducing those costs going forward.
Makes perfect sense.
Definitely.
So did you want to have this set before the common council, or?
no, I think the idea would be is if
Just
the guidance
information?
you have to us is to like work toward a longer range bridge plan, we can do that. We can just administratively begin working on that and bring that forward with the council or however we want to do that. So we can work toward that. We've incorporated, as much as we financially can without additional funding. We'll continue to pursue funding for bridges and incorporate it into the capital improvement plan as we do other projects. But we just wanted to make everybody aware of the information we have and just say that we need to begin planning this out short-term with projects and long-term with some, are we keeping all of the bridges? Is it easier to buy real estate and put in a road versus, have to maintain a bridge till the end of time?
Start funneling roads to one strategic bridge, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So,
I'll make a recommendation that administration continues looking at long-term planning for bridge and improvements, replacements, and adjustments as needed.
I second that.
Very good. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Deadline services, we were kind of covering that. You want to still discuss more, or?
yep, so this is just a document that we put together. It's in coordination with our ordinance that we have, but we really wanted to, because we've done projects and we've kind of been caught at times without knowing everything, and then also like we've had to essentially threaten residents with shutting off their water, so because they're not cooperating with replacing a lead service line. So this just sets in guidelines for our staff and for the public as to when we know there's a project and know there's a lead service line, the process to do it, right? How we're going to replace it, timelines in place, so we're planning ahead. And then, the cost responsibility, which it's generally on the property owner. We may have programs or the grant that we get to do the road, for example, may cover it, but ultimately letting them know. But then also the unanticipated ones when we're doing a project and we find one, giving people literally we gotta fix it, right? If we don't have time, we gotta roll and get it done. So just sort of some guidance more for the public and our staff to understand what the timelines are and how to handle these when we are engaged in a project. So ultimately, service discontinuation is a part of it, as well as failure to address it or respond themselves. The city will replace it on your behalf, and we will, use our tools to get that done. And tying it back to state law and our ordinance. So just a little bit more of a policy and guidance document for everybody as we tackle this.
I've got a question. If the city replaces the lead service line, how often is it that the cost to the homeowner is significantly more than if they chose to utilize a private contractor?
I don't have that information. Anything that I've ever been involved with involved replacing water laterals for an entire length of a street project. And so then that was bid out as part of the project, and so there's the economy of scale there. So in those projects, it was, short of you getting a favor from a friend, I doubt that you'll find anybody to do it for less. The one here, the one there, it just gets down to is, you go out and get 2 or 3 bids. Would you find somebody that do it for just a little bit less than what the contractor that the city had?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we just did Hamburg Henny,
Right.
and we did lead service lines or service line replacements with the project. But then we did laterals for sewer.
Right, we had
And-
about 6 or 8 people
Oh,
sign
like-
up for the sewer lateral program.
So then we just billed them on their tax bill and rolled it, and I think it ranged anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 depending on.
I want to say it was closer to between 5 and 6 for the sanitary sewer. The water line, I don't know what those came in at, quite honestly. The residents didn't really, for the greater part, when it came to the water line, everybody was okay with it because there was no assessment. Because that was the condition on the grant that we got. I did, along this line, had one resident that just was not cooperative with replacing the lead lateral service. And I had to explain to that resident that if we did not receive cooperation in getting it done, then we would send that person a notice that you have to do it on your own, and you will have to pay for it on your own. And if you didn't get it done within the time frame, then we would shut the water off. It was, even on the morning that our contractor showed up as agreed, that person was uncooperative.
So I mean, learning through this, we wanted some extra
Shut the
just.
water off.
Well,
I bet they cooperate pretty fast.
but again, like we're sitting here as staff saying we're shutting your water off, and our ordinance does provide some of that flexibility. This kind of backs it up more publicly as a here you go when we're
Right.
planning a project. This is the intention.
What we're doing.
Yes.
Why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
We it's just so.
Okay, so do we need a recommendation to go before the council about this? Or is
Sure.
this
Yep. I think it would be
Who's
wise.
here?
Yeah.
for the lead service line
Policy and
replacement
guidance.
policy? So we need a motion for that.
I make a motion, we send this to the
Okay.
council, right?
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, wonderful. Now, we're going to sidewalk replacements for tax exempt properties. And there's a lot of them.
There is. So, Adam and I talked about this summer of 2024. The area that was a focus for sidewalks during that year was Thorn, Grove, Lincoln, that general area there. And I ended up marking a fair amount of sidewalk on the north side of Thorn for the college. When I ran the numbers, my first reaction was to call Adam because it was, I want to say in round numbers, a $7,000 to $8,000 figure. And we made a decision that we were not going to do the college property at that point in time because, one, that would have took a disproportionately large amount of the budget for a non-tax-paying entity. So we wanted to have this kind of dialogue to talk about, does this community want to continue allowing non-tax-paying entities to benefit from the 50-50 split policy? Or do we want to consider an alternate, including that they would have to fund 100% of their own, given that they don't contribute towards running the community?
You think that they would go for the 50-50 in that situation?
Well, they would go for the 50-50.
I know,
It's
because
just that-
they're not paying 100%.
Right, but, right now,
But they're not paying anything.
So
Well,
at
I know.
50,
they're not paying any taxes, which
Well, I
in turn is
understand
not
that.
supporting the program.
Right.
So they're basically, the entire tax-paying community is subsidizing the nonprofits to benefit from the 50-50 program for sidewalks.
And then you're stepping in a gray area because they might say, well, we don't need a sidewalk here anymore. So, that's the
There's
problem.
ordinances and there's accessibility, and some of these areas are high traffic, they need the sidewalk, and again, it's just.
I understand
It's
that,
just,
yeah.
the sidewalk's not going away, it's just not gonna get maintained or on the schedule, we're going to avoid in front of nonprofit or tax exempt organization,
Yeah.
property owners, because
And that's still on their property, so then they're taking on a liability of a non-maintained sidewalk. Because
that's what my next question was gonna be. Wouldn't they be responsible if something happened?
generally speaking, it's a mix, you can sue the city, you can sue the property owner, right? But we have said the maintenance activities are for the property owner, and there is liability there if somebody doesn't clear snow or doesn't fix something that's, a known issue. So there's liability in all of it, but we spend enough in a sidewalk program to sort of relieve the city from that liability, because we are replacing sidewalk, we can't get to everything. And the 50-50 split, when we're trying to maximize the dollars within the community, and we have such long stretches in areas that are residential in nature, but the taxpayer is then,
Up and out.
they're paying, so.
Okay, so we need a recommendation
I'll make a
for
recommendation
this.
that staff continue to explore appropriate options for using the 50-50 maintenance money where appropriate, and finding exemptions or areas where it may not be appropriate.
Your recommendation is to continue to push the 50-50? Is that what you're saying?
My recommendation is to look at this further, possibly seek legal guidance, and then I would assume this would come to the council after staff has a full.
We can talk to legal, the ordinance would have to somehow change, and can we do that? I think that would be one thing, where the ordinance language would change from 50-50 to, it would be 100%, or there would be something else with language for exempt properties. And we can review that then,
Yeah.
I think, at a next meeting.
Yeah. My thoughts on it are the 50-50 program is funded by taxpayers as a benefit to taxpayers, right? Because at the end of the day, as a property owner with a sidewalk, you're still liable for that sidewalk, whether you choose to participate in the 50-50 program or not. But that money is coming from the greater taxpayers, and in the current situation, there's a subset of people that are getting 100% of the benefit without paying anything into the pot, and that seems not very fair to everyone else, especially when taken to an extreme situation like where we have a huge hill that has a large sidewalk that's entirely owned by one organization that does see a lot of traffic of those organization members, that it doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem quite right that they're getting a 50/50 benefit when they're not paying into it.
Yeah,
And I
my
would-
preference would be that they're 100% cost burden to the nonprofit.
And I would support making those changes, but I think we need to investigate and make sure that.
I think that's probably where Mark is leaning, but he just wants us, are there other alternatives to investigate?
We can
before-
write
before-
policies or write ordinance drafts and bring them back to the committee. If that's the direction, we can just do that. We don't have to do a.
Well, that would be a
motion.
better idea right now is let's get a policy written and bring it back to the group here.
Okay.
And then we can submit it to the common council, just as a suggestion, so we really don't have to vote on it. Well,
Yeah.
we
No,
don't
we're
have to vote on that, but we'll pass it on to the beginning here. So, anyway, all right, and then D is the DPW bill facility, update.
Yep. So we continue moving in, setting up. I never in my world, never in this world would have thought it would take so much to get phone service. Right now, we have our landlines from our old offices forwarded to our cell phones right now. That's how we're operating out of there, but, we're, you know, I guess, addressing bugs in the building right now. The heating system right now is rather complicated, is the way I'll put it. Everything is programmed now, and we're finding that the boilers aren't performing the way that they're intended to perform. So the heating contractor has been on the phone for several hours on multiple occasions with the manufacturer of the boilers to try to figure out the programming details there. It heats the building, but they're not performing the way that they're intended to perform right now. I'm having to go up and reset things on a periodic basis.
Now the upstairs, the air handlers upstairs, now those run off boilers also?
Yeah, so by and large, all the heat is provided by boilers, and then the boilers go to VAV boxes,
Right.
basically radiators within a forced air system. And so that way you can, when it's all dialed in, you'll be able to maintain better control of individual offices, areas, based upon preference for heat, preference for cooling. So, next spring, we'll be wrapping that project up with phase 2 of the outdoor work, and that is, you know, tearing down buildings and then building the rest of the yard and actually putting, we're gonna put pavement underneath the awning of the cold storage building also. So, by and large, I think everybody's enjoying being in a building that they can actually stretch their arms and actually get something done. And tonight, we'll be talking about cleaning equipment so that, you know, in the old building, I knew it was dirty. I knew that there was a reason why it was dirty. I didn't realize how much dirt got tracked in on a daily basis until we got in here. So tonight is imperative that we, you know, that we make a good decision in getting cleaning equipment.
Okay, let's move on to project updates and staff reports, unless you want to have
Nope, we're good.
we're good?
We gotta roll.
Okay.
We got to roll. Yep.
Suggestion for agenda items for the next meeting, well, we already have some suggestions already, but
Yep,
we're covered.
yep,
Okay, announcement for the next meeting date,
as needed. We'll let you know. It'll
All
be
right.
early next year.
and then the most important part, the adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Everybody in